Hola amigos, I am Rodolfo Ramos, Bradesco BBI's Mexico strategist, and welcome to the Twat in Mexico, our bi-weekly video product. On this occasion, we have a special surprise in here for you. We have a very special guest here. We have Guilherme Loureiro, former CEO of Walmart Mexico and Central America, to kick us off in this new segment, Mexico Book Club. So thank you, Guy, for joining us.
Thank you, Rodolfo, for the invitation. Pleasure to talk to you.
Perfect. So, as we normally do, amigos, we will be structuring our conversation here in three subjects for you to reference later in this video. First, we're going to be talking about Guy's new book, Reinventing the Leader, that he co-authored with Carlos Marin. Second, we're going to be talking a little bit about the retail outlook in Mexico. It would be a crime for us not to address this with such a long tenure executive here. And third, we're going to be closing with on a more personal note for what is next for Guy in his path going forward. So thank you again, Guy. So kicking off here with our first point of discussion, the reinventing the leader. You talk about in the book a lot of these values and principles: humility, honesty, the willingness to admit mistakes, and putting a sense of vulnerability, which, in my opinion, it contrasts with the traits that you see normally in CEOs. Yeah. One of the traits that really stood out for me was this self-improvement, the pursuit of personal reinvention. So can you elaborate a little bit more on this theme and what was perhaps the hardest part in your journey in specific as you led this transformation?
So, well, thanks for the opportunity. I think the book is about you knowing yourself better, and you understand that nobody is perfect, and even if you're doing pretty well, you are doing pretty well today, it not necessarily guarantees or means that you are going to do pretty well in the future. So once you get to know yourself better, and you understand there are things you can do better, and some of those things are key for the future, you need to accept that you need to change. And for many years, I have received some feedbacks that I refused to accept. Mm-hmm. And I used to say, look, I'm doing well, I've been successful, the business I run is doing well. This is me, this is Guy, and this is with the good and the bad. But once I start to accept that the feedback is a gift, it's not a criticism, it's a gift. A person that takes time to give you feedback and tells you things you have to improve. And once my coach helped me to put that in the context of what we want to do in Walmex, the digital transformation we want to do in Walmex, some of that criticism that I had received for many years was an impediment for me to lead Walmex during the transformation and after the transformation. And I came to the conclusion that the first time my desire to do something was bigger than my ego. And so I accepted that I had to change. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Second thing is that I read many leadership books and other things, and I learned a lot from those leaders, and I'm very thankful to them. But it looks like that we all try to be perfect or to transmit the idea of being perfect, and that doesn't exist. And the moment I accepted I was not, nor I would be perfect, I took a big weight off. Yeah. So, and that was good. Yeah. And then you learn more from your mistakes. You accept it faster, so your mistakes don't last as much as they used to do, and you become happier as well.
So the coaching there was a key element for you.
Crucial to tell me. He put the finger and said, he told me, when I told him, I want your help to convince my team that despite the fact we are doing well, and convince my board we need to change, he said, fine, I can do the job, to make a long story short. And he said, who's going to be the CEO? I said, well, what have you got it wrong? I am the CEO. Yeah. And I said, yeah, you are, but you cannot continue to be, because the new company requires somebody more open to listen, more open to somebody else's opinion, especially when they are against your point of view. So he taught me a big lesson.
Yeah, very interesting. The second thing from your book, we have a short amount of time here to cover a lot of ground. So if we'll leave the link to the book in the description so that you can buy and support this as well. But the other aspect that really caught my attention and something that we've actually embraced in our own organization with my team, much smaller than the one you ran, of course, but was that concept of minimum viable product. As you were leading this transformation, something that I tell my associate was that perfect is the enemy of good. Yeah. I don't take credit. I think it might have been Voltaire that said this, but this idea of implementing a product that is just viable enough and continue implementing. So can you walk us through how did you approach this in practice in the initial stages of the transformation?
Yeah. So I grew up in a world where we try to be perfect. So the development of a new product innovation was something that we would do the whole thing and test with customers at the end. And then if it went wrong, you had to go back a lot. While in the new world, you want to build a car, you build a bicycle, then you build a tricycle or whatever. Then you keep testing it and improving it with the customers. But I think the day I fully understood it was the day I came to my house and my tablet was not working. When they launch a new version, your old version stops working. But that's for another session. And my kid was here, and my kid is very tech, but he was a kid, and he told me, "Dad, I'm using that in my Universal. So buy the Pro one, which is a new one." And he told me everything he was doing. I said, "Fine." So the next day, because you never trust kids, so I went to Walmex, and I asked the one expert. He said, "Look, it still has a lot of bugs. It's a new version. It still has a lot of bugs. Why don't you buy the old version, which is working well, and next year you buy the new version?" And I bought the old one. And I came home, and my kid was so disappointed. He said, "Dad, but I told you this." And I said, "Yeah, but it has lots of bugs." Yeah. And he said, "You're right. But with all the bugs, it's better than the old one." Yeah. And that, looking for perfection, you don't have the best. Yeah. And then I said, I understand what minimum viable product means. Okay. And that's why the kids buy phones and buy tablets and buy other things with lots of bugs, and they help the manufacturer to fix the bugs, while I would go to the consumer protection agency to complain. So that's a totally different. So if you are to be a competitive company in today's world, you need to have that minimum viable product established. And the second thing is that we launched the concept of minimum viable person. Yeah. So I became a minimum viable person because I'm not digital, but I started to have, so I'm improving. Yeah. So, but I became a minimum viable person, certified by my coach.
Which also brings me to this point. You introduced, well, this is the first time I heard it maybe, but this is reverse mentoring, right?
Yes, yes.
This is probably goes hand in hand as well.
So the consultants that were helping us, they were crucial to the implementation. One of the things they had historically is that companies that had done the transformation we did, they would have to sack half of the people, and he hired about 20-30%, so we will have less people than before and more digital people. But I refused to do that because I had so many great experienced retailers. I couldn't believe I had to replace them by young digital people. No. And being new to retail, I learned the hard way how difficult it is to be a good retailer. Yeah. So we said, no. If we manage to transform those retailers in minimum viable persons in terms of digital, we can have a tremendous resource. Yeah. And then we decided, well, I go to home, my kids help me, but they don't teach me, they just solve the problem. So how can we get? And there were lots of young people that were digital in the company that were keen to learn retail from those more experienced guys. Mm-hmm. And the other way, those guys could learn. So I was the first one to have. So Montserrat Padierna was my reverse mentor. Okay. So she learned about leadership and about retail from me, And I learned about that from her.
Two-way street.
Pairing those people was crucial for our transformation.
Very interesting. Very interesting. The third point that I found interesting was the cadence for this transformation. And you likened the process of a conductor setting the pace for the music. So how did this come about within in this process of transformation that you led?
Well, we discovered that the best way to implement a huge transformation was to co-create with our associates. And when you co-create, you come closer, and you have to have the feeling. You are the ultimate decision maker, so you have to have the feeling. So sometimes we accelerate, sometimes we reduce the speed. And I remember, like the Montserrat Payano that I mentioned, one day she came to me and said, I don't know what you guys are doing because you're so slow. And then I went through her and I said, look, we are a gigantic company. We have to deliver our profits. We said we perform to be able to transform. The perform gives us the right to transform. And I went through with her about everything we had already done, and she said, well, you may be right. So look, I have to set the pace. If I do it too fast, as maybe the young people want, I may destroy the company. Okay. So when COVID came, we stopped it. Then we said, wow, we need to accelerate actually. COVID came, we said, we need to stop, it's too much. Then we said, no, if you don't accelerate, the thing's gonna become more digital. So, but you need to have the feeling. And you need to talk to the people. I used to walk around a lot, talk to the people, but at the end, you are the decision maker. Go with your feeling and accelerate, decelerate.
Yeah, and on this point, I've seen you speak before at Build Walmex event, and the key factor that everybody talks about, this passion and commitment. I mean, how do you? I mean, tying it a little bit with that, and you touched a little briefly on your book, but how do you balance this personal life, not only in your case, but also in your team members, with delivering the goals? There seems that always there's things to be done, catching up to competitors and, maintaining a sustainable business going forward. How do you balance those things for yourself and perhaps for associates?
So first of all, you need to focus. So once you focus on you define the things that you need to focus your time. And the CEO, I read a book, it's very good, that says you should focus on the things that only you can do.
Okay.
If I'm spending my time on things that my direct reports can do, it's a waste.
Okay.
So focus on what you can do, and they should focus on what they can do. That's part of the transformation. The company was very hierarchical, but hierarchical also means that people that are more junior wait for the senior people to take decisions. Why? What we did was that you take the decision.
Okay.
We set the goal, we set the direction, but you can set the way you're going to achieve it, and you can go for it. So that we never talk about this, but that thing was a liberation in terms of time.
Yeah.
And then if the CEO only focuses on what only he or she can do, you don't have a problem with the time.
And your team also feels empowered, right? As you delegate.
And you feel happier.
Yeah.
But also there is a point, they are also more accountable.
Yeah.
So, and people like the empowerment, but don't like the accountability. So you have to learn with them how to do that. And then the same thing on my personal life, I focus. So I don't have time to do everything I want to do, but I focus on the most important thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is that when you focus on the key things, the rest works.
Yeah.
Without you touching.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's why. So I know that I was interviewed saying, do you regret not having dedicated more time to it? I said, look, my life is only one. I don't have this separation of private and work life. Yeah. I enjoy my work and do things at work. I enjoy my life, and I have to be present on the most important things in both things.
Wow, of course. Thank you, Guy. So moving on to our second point of discussion here on more of on the outlook for the Mexican retail industry. We've seen a lot of changes, in terms of government policies. We've seen 13 million people leaving poverty. This growing middle class. Of course, there's a lot of challenges that we've seen in the last year or so. Can you talk us a little bit about how you see the landscape, the competitive landscape, and perhaps innovation also? What role do you see it playing?
So companies like us, we should never look at only next year. We should look long term. And I think the changes in Mexico are for good. Most of the change. Of course, we can enter in a discussion about point by point but look, the salaries in Mexico were too low. No, and I can see the salary increase as a problem, or I can see saying this is the right thing to do, and this is going to create a bigger market also. And then I have to deal with the costs.
Yeah.
But look at that. You have to focus on things you can control. Okay. No? And the market is going to grow sooner or later because of that improvement in terms of wealth for people. The costs, I can do things that my management is going to fix it. Yeah. So this is good news. Yeah. But short term, because the cost increase is being abrupt cost increase in the short term. You cannot deal with that in the very short term. But you need to look, that will separate companies that can go for efficiency and companies that cannot go. In the short term, we're all suffering the same. But in the long term, some will benefit from higher income from the consumers, and some will do a better job on the cost. And that will separate kids from adults.
Do you have any something that we have been talking a lot about has been these hard discounters? I mean, do you think that this is a disruptor or just a different way of how business has been evolving?
Hard discounters are disruptive everywhere. I think Mexico still has a lot of informal and traditional market, and the fact that the cost to operate is growing gives them a huge opportunity. So they are here to stay. They're going to be successful. They have money to invest. They're building lots of stores. You need to look also at the comp stores without the benefit of being recent stores, and you need to look at their profitability to see if they will be able to generate the profitability the market expects them to generate. But I think they're doing a good job. They're good competitors. They do not necessarily grow at our expense. No, but they're doing. I respect the competitors. I respect what they're doing. But there is a huge opportunity in Mexico for all of us.
Okay. Yeah, that I agree as well. So moving on to our third and final point here, you talk a lot about purpose in your book, and your personal purpose, and alignment with that of the company, and having all associates joining that purpose. So, what's going to be your next purpose and your next stage?
When we define the code, the purpose is live. I live in tense. I always look for things to do. I'm always busy, and I love what I do. I love the people. I love what I do, and cause impact. I'll continue to do, but in a different way. I just recently read a book that called Strength to Strength, and it says that at my age, I'm better mentor than executor. And I now should work to help with executors to be successful, even more successful than I was. And so I'm becoming a professor I have become a professor at IMD, an executive professor at IMD in Switzerland. I start to mentor CEOs, and I will help people to do even better than I did. That's the way I do, and I'm enjoying this thing a lot. Well,
you have left a deep impact here in Mexico, and in the great organization. So I want to wish you success in your next endeavors, and thank you again. You've been really kind with your time here for
Thank you very much. Pleasure to talk to you.
Perfect. Thank you, amigos, and until the next one. Ciao, ciao.